All right, so let's dig right in on this whole metal production thing. And I'm going to focus, I guess, on drums first. And by far, the first thing you always think about with metal drums is the hi-hat. The hi-hat really defines the sound of... I'm lying. It's not funny. I don't even know why I did that. Okay. We got a little production here that Ruprecht put together, and not the most interesting musical piece in the world, but a very good illustration or thing for us to teach with. So let's get started. I'm going to hit play here on the most basic of... I have nothing going on. All my plugins are bypassed except the tuba. So let's just see where we are to kind of get started. And this is kind of your bread and butter basic operation. We've got what most of you guys are going to be doing at home. We have Superior Drummer using just a stock Avatar kit. We've got doubled guitars, high-gain guitars that we use the Axe-Fx on. You could just as well use just about any emulator and get something pretty good. And we got a track from on bass from the Axe-Fx as well. Okay, so let's kind of just dig in and see. The first thing I'm going to do when I pull these tracks up is I'm looking for what is this song. This is barely a song. I think it's like one note. But what does this thing need? And it's going to tell me right off the bat. And I think this is something that you guys who think like you're like human calculators, nothing wrong with that, particularly if you're building bridges. But for what we're doing here, you've got to get a vision going. And if you're not used to working that muscle, start. Hear this production and say, how can we make this badass? And I already know because I've already played with it a little bit, but the very first thing I heard was the snare. Listen to it. From a sound quality standpoint, I mean, this is Superior Drummer. These things sound great. Here are some of the best samples in the world. I mean, we're not really going to get better. We'll just get different. You get into that whole argument. But there's nothing wrong with the sound quality, but we're well past that. As I already said earlier, we're doing sound design. Our job is to pump this thing way up. We got to get this thing, you know, all muscled up and ripped. And one of the thing that jumps out at me is that snare should go pow. Dun, 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 pow. I mean, not too far, unlike some of them, like Bon Jovi and Def Leppard would do their vocal things, like in 89, 87, somewhere in that ballpark. You know, they go, hey. There's a gigantic roar, and I want that. I got to go, doo, 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 doo. And I don't really necessarily, like I said, I don't want to go 80s drums so much. I just want to get that feeling of power. Like Montezuma, you know, screaming on top of some kind of Aztec-looking pyramid thing. I don't know, just destruction and doom. And when I hear, you know, dun dun dun, psh, psh, that gets us. We're starting to sound like some kind of Conway Twitty production, or you know, I don't know. So that's the first thing that leaps out at me. We need that. And overall, the whole thing is relatively, I don't know if small is the word, but we're like an impact. So let's hear that. And I want to point out that I've already got things pretty loud. My two-bus has already got, I left everything on the two-bus so we could focus on the real work. Now, normally I would kind of start with nothing and then put my two-bus stuff on and see what happens, because that's going to screw my mix all up, and then kind of go back and maybe not screw it all the way up, but it's going to make changes. Anything with transients is suddenly not going to be there anymore, because we're doing modern metal and this stuff has to be loud. We don't even have to have that discussion, because metal is always loud and it's been loud for years. So we're at -8 right now, and we won't get a whole hell of a lot louder. And you know, usually with vocals and stuff, you get another decibel or two of RMS level. So we're basically at competition level now. I tend to, when I do these tutorials, go a little bit louder on purpose, just so we can kind of push our tolerances a little bit, forces me to mix a little bit better, and I think you learn more. Okay, so let's listen some more. Another thing is the guitars are awesome. I have no problem with those. We will hype them up just a little bit, but that's just like, I don't know, mascara. I don't really know makeup, but we're just going to highlight little bitty things there to make those guitars a little bit more awesome. But the bass has got, I don't know, you know, some people call it honky. I don't know. not the racial term. It's some kind of like 500 to 700. There's a realness to it that's just real dumb sounding. So we need to get rid of that for sure. Other than that, because we're using these modern tools, the Superior Drummer and Axe Effects and things like that, and they're dialed in very well. Like I said, Ruprecht did a great job tracking these. Since we already have good tones, it's not about fixing. It's about how can we make this music work. Okay, so let's dig in.